Thank you to our listeners from around the world and survivors from all spaces and walks of life for sharing your stories responsibly. The UNNI podcast is now an affiliate of the Mental Health News Radio Network, the only podcast network in existence, serving as a beacon for mental health and wellness information, testimony, and resources. Welcome to the UNNI podcast. I'm your host, Bianca McCall, and today our journey begins in the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, and it takes us across the globe to connect with heroes in their own rights in the space of suicide prevention to help us reach a cure for suicide. Welcome back to the UNNI podcast. Today we have a special treat. Get to be here in person with DJ Prenup. Welcome back. I know that we had a little short vibe session, a couple weeks ago where we were just getting into, why is this conversation so important? Talking about suicidality, but then also just changing the game, changing the way that we even talk about it, approach it, think about it, and not having it just be this highly stigmatized, dark subject, but talking about mental health as a whole and how we're all kind of related in the space of we're surviving. We're all trying to survive.
Exactly.
And one of the coolest things that I took from our previous conversation was actually, I felt like you didn't even know you were a survivor,
No,
like I'm over here talking to you, all my Destiny's Children, and then you're like, yeah, actually I have survived this and that. And so I was thinking we could just kind of jump off talking about that. Like, how has it been since that conversation and you realizing you're a survivor?
So it's actually been a little enlightening because we did also talk about as far as the stigma of even though you're not someone that's going through the fight, but you're always there for someone, you are still a survivor, because then you have that mentality where I'm always there, but now I can't afford to take a break from always being there for somebody.
Right.
So after you actually said that conversation, because I mentioned my cousin as well, who's battling every day, whether it's her physical ailments, her mental ailments, her biological ailments. So she has lupus. She fought cancer a couple of times. She's still what's the word? She's still grieving the loss of her baby sister. Yeah. Although it happened 14 years ago, it's impacted her and the family the most. And so she's I don't want to use the word constantly needing someone to talk to, but a lot of the family has grown tired of it. Maybe they don't understand that they also felt that way of, okay, I'm doing too much. I have to get my mental in check because it's too much for me now. Right. And so after that conversation, I actually called her. I was like, Darnisha, I just wanted to check in. Yeah. And that small step means so much to them because they feel like they've been outcasted. I was going to say, how did she respond to that? She was like, this was out of the blue, but this was so little, but it means so much to me. Yeah. She texted back after the conversation, which was literally like a 30-second phone call. I was like, hey, Nene, I just wanted to call, check on you. Hope you're doing well. She's like, you know what, cousin, thank you so much. Yeah. She texted me. She's like, I started crying. Yeah. Because something so small means so much, especially coming from a family member, from a loved one that you've grown up with. Yes. That small gesture, knowing that you're busy. A 30-second phone call may seem like a 30-second phone call, but a lot of things can get in the way from people actually making that phone call. So for her, that meant the world. She's like, I'm taking it day by day, but this definitely is helping me get through the day. Thank you so much. Yeah. And you never know what that person is going through on the other end of that phone, because how many times has it happened to you to where you could be having a bad day? Maybe it's, hey, I don't got enough money in my pocket type of thing. And then just something happens. Somebody gives you a call, or something happens to where you find a $5 bill on the ground and you're just like, oh my gosh, like it's happened more times than I can count. Yeah. So, I mean, why not be that miracle, for somebody else? Why not be that $5 bill on the ground, or, be that call that changes somebody's entire day, especially if they're struggling. Right? Exactly. So, and,
I think that, as a society, we kind of have our cliches that make us feel better about certain situations. One of them being like, it takes a village to raise a child, And so if it takes a village to raise a child, why wouldn't it take a village or a family unit, to be able to raise healing and raise awareness, to be able to help somebody that's struggling, get through the darkness? Why doesn't it take a village for that?
It's funny because not funny, but we actually had this conversation with my family yesterday. As far as a lot of us only get together on a sad note. Yeah. Whether it's a death in a family or someone was hurt and then they just want to say hi to everybody. It always takes sometimes that negative mark for anyone to even converse a lot. So my grandmother went in for surgery yesterday because they found more lumps in her breasts. So she had to get those taken out, which she's fine, by the way. We're good. She's fine. Good. But my grandma was just so overjoyous just to see the family because she hadn't seen them in so long. But the way that technology is now, you can do a Zoom call up to like 30 people. Right. So, it was that moment where it was like, hey, we should do this more often because the last time we really saw each other's faces was when Grandpa passed away. That was years ago. Right. Years ago. Right. We always not mention like, oh, we'll do like a family barbecue, which of course would be nice, but a lot of us live across the country. Right. So let's do something that's more accessible. So why can't we just converse on a regular basis? Right. Like that. So being the village should be easy now. No, we have all the tools to be that village, right? But then there's still some resistance to being a part of that. There's still, I think, some lingering ideas like, I got enough going on my own. I got my own stuff, so I don't have time. Like you mentioned, even that 30-second call is like laborious for somebody who feels like they don't have the time, they don't have the energy. They don't want to contribute to the solution. But just now, I think with Black Lives Matter, with all the social injustices from other groups, with COVID-19, we're just now starting to get into this whole mindset that like we belong to a greater whole. Yep. It's crazy. It's just the same as COVID-19. People are just now thinking we should wash our hands. Like it's crazy to me that we're just now understanding like we're a community. Like what we do affects our community. Exactly. If we go out without a mask, then it affects our community. You know, I mean it's crazy. So that was one of the things that actually me and my older brother had talked about as well, because I always would express to him is like, hey, I feel like a terrible uncle. I have yet to see my niece and nephew. Given COVID, but my niece turns 2 and my nephew turns 3. I haven't seen them yet. They live in Texas, which is a 2-hour difference. So when I was working full time, by the time I get off, they're in bed. By the time I wake up to go to my shift, they're either in a lesson or they're out in the store. So even though those quick gestures could happen, there was always something getting in the way. And I feel like that's what happens a lot as a unit as well, is something minor that a lot of the time is not controllable. It gets in the way and things get pushed back. And what happens is a lot of people get used to things being pushed back. For example, when I would post on a flyer, I'm DJing every Sunday. Oh, I'll catch you next Sunday. Right. I'll catch you next Sunday. I can't do it tomorrow. I'll catch you next Sunday. And then there goes that stigma of things being pushed back and back and back and back. And what happens is it becomes normal. It becomes normal. It's deemed normal. And when people think things are normal, they're not comfortable with doing the opposite. They don't like changing the status quo. Or, for example, when you get so used to screening someone's phone call, someone who could be needing advice or just need to talk to someone, you screen it eight times out of 10, your majority is, well, what does this person want? I already screened you. Why are you calling me? It becomes normal in your mindset. I feel like, at least. No, I completely agree. And I think it then becomes a question of what's the fine line between self-care? Because sometimes we do need to, I'm not going to lie. I have a family member that calls me and I'm like, okay, self-care. I cannot have this. I shan't not have this conversation right now, right? That's the safe word. Right. But like, what's the fine line between I need to take care of myself and I need to
and what is it even called? Like this, it's not an obligation, but I need to belong. You know what I mean? It's just as healthy for myself to belong to a greater whole. What's the fine line?
I actually don't know that, because I struggle with that myself. Whether it's one of my friends who is an avid FaceTimer. I don't like FaceTime.
Yeah.
Text me.
Yeah.
But he can't get it through his mind, which is fine. But I wouldn't necessarily say more so what's the fine line, because now that's giving yourself a limitation. Because after so long of deny, when are you going to be able to accept?
Right.
When can you push past that barrier? Like, yeah, for me, it's like, oh, ignore, because I don't like FaceTime. But what if that person on there is just like, yeah, I just wanted to see your face. Like, I haven't talked to you in a week and a half. Yeah, I could call you over the phone, but to me, it's more impactful that I can actually see that you're doing okay.
Right.
Versus someone who's always screening, text me. It's like, I want to actually hear that you're okay. And so a lot of us, when it comes to that self-care, of course, you have to be comfortable with wanting to actually do it. But a lot of us, I feel like, are afraid to actually make that step. Right. To even get to that point where we're comfortable with doing it.
Right. Yeah. No, and I totally understand. And I think there's so many things in society, too, that reinforce our comfort being isolated and alone. You know what I mean? Things that are aimed to make things more convenient. It has people trying to schedule more or to accomplish more in a day. And that ultimately takes away from self, and that ultimately takes away from, this group, whatever system that we belong to, right? Because we can only spread ourselves so thin, And so, yeah, I want to go back to this revelation that you are a survivor, because what it sounds like is like, it's normal, like you going through the trenches, waking up every day, being on your grind, answering calls or not. It's all normal, right? It's a normal routine. So to recognize yourself finally as a survivor, what does that do? What does that mean for your normalcy or your normal routine? Does it change it?
I don't think it necessarily changes it. It just helps me better adapt to certain things. So, for example, our previous conversation was before this was about my old friend Gregory, who unfortunately was successful in his attempt for suicide. I hold on to my friends a lot more dear. I try to be that voice just because I personally don't want to go through another loss like that. Yeah. It was devastating. I think about him every day, although I honestly talk about it because I feel I don't have to. His memory is always embedded in my brain. And so living my life like that is only beneficial not just to myself, but someone who else is also going through that struggle of I won't be remembered or I'm not loved. So again, back to just doing small things to just vocalize that. Just showing that the time that I am here. I'm always on the grind. I mentioned it as an RA. I may not always be there, but I always have other forms of communication. And that, I can really appreciate that too, because you're saying I don't necessarily have to talk about, with regards to your loss or the loss of Gregory, you don't have to talk about it, but you are communicating, that honoring of his memory. You are communicating that it's the very important message that you got to stay connected, and I'm going to value, all of my relationships, friendships included. And so these are ways that you are surviving, and you are communicating. It's just not verbally, and that's okay. That's okay. And I think that it's almost like we got to get back to the basics. We have to recognize those small successes, in our everyday life. And for you, it's not just a small success; it's a huge success. Surviving every day, because what is the difference between you and a Gregory? You know what I mean? In friendship, in childhood. What are the differences? You know what I mean? And I think that is a major concept right now, a major construct
conflict that we're battling within our community, because no matter of skin color, no matter of economy, we're all faced with, how do we survive COVID-19?
Exactly.
How do we survive economically, our families, or what have you? There are degrees of separation that we've been so comfortable having between us, and it becomes us versus them. But when you talk about mental health, when you talk about survivorship, there are no degrees of separation. What is the difference? And so for you, how do you find the motivation to communicate in these other ways? What lifts you up?
I just don't like being quiet.
Okay.
So, as you could tell over the Zoom call, I was very, very, very vocal. If I took over, I apologize. I don't mean to.
No, it's okay.
But that just kind of goes hand in hand with me and my DJing. Talking is my way of expressing myself as well. So when we're all cooped up in the house, what can we do? Yeah. I call my mama every day. It's like, hey, I'm bored. Things like that. And so, especially now with COVID, it's important that you can vocally express yourself, because, again, like you said, we don't have those degrees of separation. Right. I used to have a booked schedule. I was never home on the weekends because I'm out gigs. When I'm at home on this beautiful Saturday afternoon, but I can't necessarily go outside. So what do I do? Right. After a while, someone who isn't used to that status, or to used to that status quo changing, a lot of people don't know how to articulate that either. Right. So it's important that I be vocal about it, because the more I talk, the more comfortable I get. The more comfortable I get, the more I start spewing out. What happens is that I get down to my true issue. Yeah. That was one of the things as an RA is like, a lot of people, when they come to you with a problem, 98% of it is just them talking. You have to be careful on that. You have to be really keen on that 2% when the issue actually comes out, because people just want to vent sometimes. Right. They just want to vent, and that is okay. Right. That is okay until you get down to that actual part of it. So for me, at least, is talking helps me get through my issues. And they always say in every relationship, communication is key. Yeah. So that talking is the only way you can really get out your verbal communication about other issues, because I know a lot of couples who were put to the test because of COVID. I'm not used to being around you 24/7, girl. Right. I'm not used to being around you 24/7, dude. Like, this is weird. Like, what's your routine? While I'm at work, you do this? That's so weird. And a lot of people have been affected by that, because, it's changed their mentality about how, I've seen relationships end because, I didn't know you did that, or you were like that when I was gone. That's weird. Or that's not, or I didn't know, or I don't see you like that. A lot of people's ideas of people were changed completely. Yeah. So on top of having to deal with, I don't have a job, or I didn't qualify for unemployment, or it's almost August and I haven't gotten my 1200 yet. Right. So, my savings is depleted. I had to sell my car. So there's a lot of these other financial things happening that are putting huge strains and stress on so many people and so many relationships as well, that couples who didn't think they had communication issues early on in their relationship are faced with those now. Absolutely. And I think it's just does so much for your mental, and a lot of people don't know how to address it. Right. So it's crazy, right? Because during this time we've got live updates, right, on COVID-19 cases, like, these are how many people got tested, these are how many people have COVID-19. Where are the live updates about these are how many families that are fractured due to COVID-19, or these are how many people came into the hospitals, complaining about mental health issues or suicidality? We're not getting live updates. We're not looking at that data. We're looking at COVID-19 cases, right? And so you're right. You have all of these families, all these couples, these relationships, some people that are isolated and feeling very lonely because they live alone, right? Or they're not in a relationship. So you've got all these different circumstances and scenarios, and how do you talk to somebody when you're in each of these scenarios? How do you communicate if you don't have somebody right there to talk to about it? What does communication look like from the life of a DJ? Put your hands up. Right. That is a good question. No one's ever really asked me that. I've never really had to integrate DJ and real life as far as communication, because when I'm on the microphone, or when I'm by myself, or it's me and my girlfriend, it's no problem. Yeah. So I gotta think about that one. And the reason why I ask you is because, listen to this.
and I have all the respect for my DJs right here out in the community, right? All the respect. What you do is not easy, and to have that level of energy constantly.
I'm kidding,
no, it's not. To some people, they look at the board and they're like, "Wait, what? Like, I don't even know."
Too many
right?
miles. Hold on. No, yeah.
But to some degree, I think we all are connected, right? We're all kind of like our own level of DJ at heart. You know, I made some meme playlists. You know, gave them out to friends, people who I was with. You know, like I'm a DJ at heart, right?
So mixtape champ over here,
right? Mixtape, right? Exactly. And so, but that speaks to how music, you know, is really kind of this form of communication, this medium that connects us all. It could be any genre, right?
Exactly.
But music, I don't know anybody that hasn't been in the car alone, and you know, especially when it's dark, right? You can kind of close your eyes, you know, on a straight road and start singing with your whole heart. You
just
know what
like
I mean?
that $5 bill, that one song that comes in and just boosts your entire morale.
Yeah, and I mean, it just changes an instant kind of jolt to your energy, right? So with music connecting all of us, how can you see music being a positive, a part of the solution for folks that aren't able to communicate during this time?
Man, that is a good question. So music used to help me get through a lot of like tough times, whether I was very angry at someone, whether I was very upset or going through a hard time. I always had music by my side because I was able to, like, I know what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Put this song on, jam out to it, and I'm good to go. And I feel like music, we didn't realize how important music was until quarantine. Like, yeah, people go out to shows and concerts, but when the idea of like live stream started to start to flourish, and now they're on Twitch going crazy now. People didn't realize whether it was fear of missing out or those who have been patrons years consecutively, and now they have to miss out because of this, and now it actually affected them,
right? Because
that was, you know, music was their getaway. You know, being in that environment, they could truly be themselves. And I feel like this year alone, we saw a spike as far as I did, at least. I follow closely as far as new artists that are coming out, because now their platforms are actually being heard, or new music and an influx. I myself even dropped a house music EP, real fast, just because I feel like this is a time now that music has helped me stay organized throughout the quarantine. Music has helped me remain occupied. You know, I can listen to music when I'm in the bathroom, in the shower, driving. So music encompasses my life daily. I don't know what silence is.
Right.
I'm not used to it. I'm not used to it. So when it's silent, I feel like I'm missing out, or I feel like none of my thoughts are going to run crazy, but I'm just like, okay, now what?
Right.
Music keeps me going, and that's why I feel like this year alone, music has played such an impactful role for people of any genre. There was actually a country singer who I didn't know she was a country singer at all. But we were listening to Spotify. I'm doing laundry. Yes, I do laundry. And her song dropped on the Black Tuesday. Never heard of her. I can't remember her name, but she was a black country artist, which I know there are black country artists.
Right.
Not many of them, but I know that there are some, and I'm not a huge country fan, but her song at that time, I was just like, yo, this song is truly powerful. It's called BLM, that's all I know. But yeah, I can't remember what it was. But that's just as far as music goes. Even as a DJ, as it translates, we're in Las Vegas. People come for a good time. They want the high energy. They want the songs that they know the words to. They come here for that hour, 2 hours that they're going to be there to be free, to express themselves, to have fun. And that's important, because 24 hours in a day, let's say they took a trip up here, they drove 24 minus 4 hours, boom. They slept 8 hours, that's 12 hours. Those 2 hours are so important to them. They're so crucial as making or breaking the night. And people like, DJ suck, because I mean, the music just wasn't for them. But I've seen it where it was like, yo, that DJ was amazing. Made my night.
It's an opportunity to connect. You know, you're connecting with a DJ, you're connecting with the crowd. You know what I mean? And everybody on that same level of energy. You know, music is a powerful thing. A powerful thing. I want you to talk a little bit about the EP that you dropped, because in our prior conversation, we have to, though, because I actually think that relates to my earlier question about how does the DJ communicate with Black Lives Matter movement. You know, right at the beginning, I think it was that you said you took it to the studio. You took the frustration, the anger, the confusion, you know, all of the pain, the hurt. You took that to the studio and communicated through, you know, this EP. So talk a little bit about it.
So the EP that I put out, so the track that I produced wasn't actually on that EP, but it is coming out soon. It's called Blackout, and just a little bit about it. Which is also why I don't like social media too much, because there is so much negative news on there.
Right.
You have everything about COVID going on, the increased cases. You have the protests that are being disrupted by officials and you know, civil protectants who are using brutal tactics against those who are trying to peaceful protest, or those who have separate agendas that are conflicting with those of peaceful protesting. And it's just so much happening. I've had friends out here who are protesting who have been injured or arrested. You're seeing people going missing as a result. And it hits your heart so heavy, not just one day, but 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I think we're going on, the protests haven't stopped.
Right.
And you're still, although the news isn't covering, Twitter, I feel like is the new news standpoint.
Right.
But it's just so much negative news being out there. My heart felt heavy. I literally I didn't delete social media. I just deleted the app. I took the weekend off.
Yeah.
But that day I deleted it. I sat at my computer. I scrubbed through all my plugins and synths that I had that were of African origin, whether it was the djembe drums, I think it's a drum, whether it was certain synths, the program that I use, they have Zulu tribe acapellas,
nice. And
I just wanted something that would remind me of my ancestors. Yeah, you know, something that would give. I mean, it's house music to me. House music was created by Black people.
Rhythms, yeah.
It was created by Black people. So encompassing that with all of the instruments that I found, making it more ground heavy, because that's what it was. We connected with the earth. You would stomp. That was a way of getting a lot of our frustration, a lot of our passion out. So it's very bass heavy as well. So when I created that, that to me was releasing what I had negative in my mind, to where I listen to it and I'm like, this gives me some form of uplifting. Right. You know, I feel more powerful. I feel like this is dedicated to my people. You know, this I can identify with. And so I made that one out of just something that I personally needed to hear. Yeah. And then I decided to put it out because if I needed to hear it, I'm sure someone else might need to hear it as well. Right. So, but back to the EP. Sorry. The reason, what got me into music in general, as far as a DJ, was on the production side. I was involved in a lot of like trap heavy EDM music. So, which was, again, a lot of, you know, Black artists, but even, of course, those who are not Black. It's trap music. Trap music is very bass heavy. Yeah. It's very drum oriented. So, which is a lot of African heritage. That's what we have as far as, you know, music being our language and us getting across our ideas. We would bang, we would stomp, we would scream. That's what we did. That to us, that was music. And so, getting into DJing from that point was I kind of just evolved myself on a personal level to how can I help others with music, you know? And then so kind of like 10 years later, it just came back full circle when I started production again. And I stayed within the house music genre. I fell back in love with it. Right. After, you know, hip hop heavy, you know, I just want to go to Town Nightclub, you know, get ratchet, you know, and all this stuff. I wanted to start making music not music that has a purpose, but music that allowed me to express myself.
Right.
I can't rap, so there's no point in me making a rap song. I can't I can't get on.
Right.
But I'm decent when it comes to a pen. So small little words or trinkets that I'll like put in and out there. And everything that I made just bass and kick drum heavy.
Yeah.
And it was just me sort of coming in full circle, going from production to DJing to back to production.
Yeah.
After what I call a 10-year hiatus from producing, and it just reinforces my love for music. When I sit there and I'm working on a song, that's me at 16 what it was when I would play games. I would get so in the zone. I would leave reality because I needed that escape. Music just happened to be that escape for me.
I love, so like as I'm thinking about all this bigger picture, right? Because we start off talking about what does it feel like to now recognize that you're a survivor, and how are you surviving? And if you could share that with the UNNI audience, right, and the UNNI community. I've heard now stories of you reaching out to like what's important or who's important in your circle, your system, right? You reach out to your cousin and you say, hey, I got you. 30-second conversation. That's all that needs to be said, right? You're reaching out or reaching into your music, right? And falling back in love with a passion to produce, to create, right? Being creative during this time has helped you to survive. Tell me about some other interactions, whether it be with family members or with things that bring joy into your life. How have you really just reached out and reached in to connect during this time?
So part of my training as an RA was really to be able to identify kind of the outlier people who they don't necessarily say that they need any help or assistance, but you can kind of tell. And so I reached out to a lot of my friends who I know have been affected, and just offering that like helping hand. It's like, hey, I know everyone's being hit differently. So for example, my friend is in New Mexico. A lot of my close friends that I either went to school with, I've known the last 10 years, aren't in Vegas anymore, and a lot of them are out on their own. Yeah. So my friend Rebecca, she lives in New Mexico. She just had a baby. Her husband was working on base. He was diagnosed with COVID.
Oh man.
19. So she's dealing with the newborn on her own, out of work. She's worried about her husband, who has to be in quarantine, but now also worried about her and her baby, who's newborn as well. And so I forgot what the question was. Now I'm just kind of like
freestyling.
Running on. But just being able to identify those people that do need some assistance, because your voice can go a long way. It's just like, hey, I'm here if you need me.
Yeah. And so you're plugging into like this larger system. It's not just about your own circle, for survival, but it sounds like for you, surviving is also staying connected to the larger or the greater good, and I want to make sure that the audience has picked up on this. So you were an RA in college, right? And you're speaking to a lot of the training and things that you received to be an RA. And a lot of that training is I would say similar to a lot of training and experience that I have, being in the counseling field. And that's recognizing, being able to recognize and identifying signs of potential crisis, right? And when you talk about mental health,
words. I could not get those words. I appreciate that.
No, that's what I'm here for, right? We're connected right now. So, but being able to identify when somebody is in crisis, and what are kind of like the initial steps that you have to go? Because number one, I'm thinking you have to care, right? Because I would say that there's arguably some people out there that could spot a crisis, in their sleep or right away.
And a lot of them are like, you know what? Not mine, not my problem.
Not my problem, not my job. So number one is, you have to have some care and compassion, right? But what are some other steps, and what do you do after you identify that somebody may be in crisis?
I'm always careful whenever I approach someone, because I also could be misinterpreting them. So back to my friend, I noticed that they were selling a lot of things. He's like, hey, selling this for this much, or best offer. So hey, I don't mean to come off sideways. I saw this. I just don't know if you guys need any assistance at all. And it's a simple question, but of course not assuming either, because some people would just have a look.
Right.
They may not be going through them, but the thing is, if you can identify that, it's always okay to approach them, be like, hey, are you good? You good? Okay. And so always, the number one thing for me is always assess it. Always assess the situation before you react to anything.
Yeah.
And it's never bad to ask a question. Right. So a lot of people tend to like assume, or they only see things from their side. So, for history, or their personal history, they don't know how to think the other way. Right. Their paradigm is so focused on from their upbringing is that they don't know how to, they identify it, but it could be incorrect as well. Yeah. So always assess. I always ask questions. And then it's not necessarily, whether or not you can help, but that you reach out to it. Yeah. It's like, hey, if you need anything, you let me know, because sometimes this is my first time going through it also. Right. I don't know all the resources, but we can find out together. Yeah.
And it's so interesting too, because for me, I find purpose in my lived experiences because I've been through some shitty things, not going to lie, but then I might meet somebody and they share their story, and I think what you're saying is so important. You have to ask. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't beat around the bush. Don't avoid or beeline as soon as you see somebody that's going through it. Be direct. Ask the question. What are you going through, or are you thinking about ... fill in the blank, right? And then once you are open to receiving that information, I've had so many experiences, more than I could share, where they share with me what they're going through, and I'm like, oh my God, I went through that. You know what I mean? And automatically I'm able to assign purpose to my lived experience, and that changes my world. You know what I mean? That changes, it makes me healthier. My mental health, my spiritual health gets even stronger. And so I wouldn't even be open to that type of growth and that type of joy or experience had I not just asked the question, Exactly. Because I could have just stayed in my own world. I got enough to do on my own, but that's how I assign purpose, is by interacting with someone else, and you open yourself up to being able to share a lived experience.
And that's what I've learned, is that the not number one, but like the most bad thing you can think of, that's not, I don't know English apparently, is to
freestyle.
Is to assume someone's going to tell you. Yeah. Yeah. If you're in a relationship and you assume your partner is going to tell you about their past or what they do or don't like, you're doomed from the start. You have to ask. You have to ask. It's okay to ask. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you shift paradigms.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think in every single situation, matter of fact, you have to be comfortable asking questions, and you have to be comfortable receiving information. And I think that everybody could stand to be empowered by saying, all right, I'm going to receive this information, and I'm empowered to pick and choose what it is I'm taking with me on my journey. You know what I mean? Because I think that it's the worst thing when people, they receive this information and they automatically shut it down because they don't like the tone or they don't like some things that people are saying. But that's the worst thing you can do. You know what I mean? Because of all these interactions, there's opportunities to assign purpose to your own life. Then be open. You know what I mean? To pick and choose. Take what you need to go about your journey. You know what I mean? And thank them and move on.
Exactly. So it is okay to agree to disagree, but always hear the person out. Yeah. There was a book that I read in college. It was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I only appealed to number 5, which was seek to understand before being understood. Yes. It's important to kind of, get rid of that narcissistic view. Yeah. Hear someone out to try and understand. You don't have to necessarily sympathize, but empathy goes just as far. A lot of people who, again, don't know how to vocalize it, or when they do, they're always constantly shut down. So what happens is more walls get put up. Yeah. And so they don't receive that small ounce of care that they deserve. Right. I'm telling you right now, I use the word deserve because this is strong. People deserve to be heard. Yeah. Is what it is. Yep. So whether you like what they say or don't, that can come after. Yeah. Because sometimes things just need to get off the chest.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, when there's an issue and someone's yapping at you, 98% of it's BS.
Right.
that 2% is what you can actually key in on, but let them get it out. Let them get it out.
Yeah, because it's sometimes it's buried under all of that BS, and it's the same way with all messaging.
BS is such a bad word, but yeah, I know. it's not all BS. Just that can be like a real issue, but yeah.
Yeah. So instead of BS, let's call it what do we call it?
Ooh.
This is our time to brand something. We can put it out there.
Right.
This is our moment. Legacy.
It's not BS. Let's call it
extra. I don't know. Extra's kind of got like a negative connotation right now.
Oh man, I had a word. I can't think of it anymore. Hold on. They have a thesis in their first paragraph.
Right.
A thesis statement. I don't know. Yeah.
That's thesis, hypothesis, whole research paper, and then people are like, "Wait,
here's my 10 sentences, and then here's what the actual the essay is about." Right.
And just to say, I know I threw out the word extra, but I don't think extra is a bad thing. And no. I'm going to preface this with I've been called extra, okay, by multiple people, and I feel like extra isn't a bad thing.
You wouldn't like me if I wasn't.
Yeah, right. If I'm extra, then extra is cool, you know. So yeah. But you're right. Sometimes it takes unveiling of layers, right, to get to the essence or the true issue. You know what I mean? And that's true for just about anything. If you look at media, the way that we have to decipher good information, factual information from the extra, now going on the layers. It's
just like
work.
An onion.
It's exhausting.
It's just like an onion. You gotta peel it out.
Exactly. Will you share with the UNNI audience what you are doing to further amplify the voices of what you're saying? These people that otherwise don't have a stage, don't have a platform to be able to share that messaging.
Say that one more time.
So you had just mentioned before we kind of went off on our tangent, you just mentioned that it's important for people to have a voice, you know what I mean, and to amplify that voice. And so I know just from our talks that you're doing a ton right now to amplify the voices of those that otherwise don't have that platform. So can you share a little bit about what you're doing in that space? So
this is something that I actually told my girlfriend one time is give people the patience you would give a child. Because children, much like adults, can't always articulate what they're going through. Right. You have to kind of read into it. You have to peel back what they're saying to interpret what they're meaning. That's what it is. And so always, like, out of the mic, have patience. So one of the things that I'm doing or saying, it's what I'm showing. I'm showing you that I can take the time out to listen to you. Although this 5 minutes may seem like an hour, that's 5 minutes that you needed. Right. So, and really just vocalizing that is like, well, hey, I understand that you feel that way. Have you thought about how they might see it, or have you have you thought about looking at it this way? And 'cause everyone has issues, and everyone has their interpretation of their issues. Right. So, like my dad always told me, growing up, there's 3 truths: yours, the other person's, and then the actual truth. Right. So you're always going to see your side, whether you're right, you're right or wrong. But taking that step to understand someone, even before you want to really speak your mind. Because now, what if you wanted to say is like, oh, I guess we actually kind of go like hand in hand with it. So I always try to exhibit patience as possible. And I try to exhibit the best of my understanding. If I don't understand, I ask a question. Yeah. I was like, well, what did you mean by you felt this way? Because I don't know how you feel. Yeah. Or how did me saying it affect you? Because maybe it was my tone, choice of words. I missed a punctuation in a text message because people read a lot into text messages. Right. So it's important to ask questions like that. I feel like, at least. Yeah. No, you're so right. Understanding is key. There's so many things that go into being able to understand language, the language that you use. I think regulating your emotions, because what you're talking about is before
you jump in with your opinions or what have you, you have to actually regulate and have some composure, right? And hold on to that, to be open to hearing somebody else's, point of view.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to grow.
And I'm not saying I'm some perfect individual, because I still struggle as far as making sure that I don't speak out of anger, or I don't speak out of emotion, because again, people get passionate about how they feel about certain things, which is okay. That happens. But when you can when you can self-actualize, is that the word? About that? Or I forgot what I was saying. But we can actually recognize, those emotions, and you can correct yourself. You can only have a much better conversation, because now you're more level-headed. When this happens, I get a certain way. Well, let me try and think of it differently, or approach it differently, or say it, or use the different words, because I don't want to come off as I'm angry at you.
Right.
I want to come off as like, hey, this is what I noticed, or hey, I saw this. I just wanted to see if you're okay.
Right.
Or hey, how you doing? Because the one thing I hate getting is like, I ain't talking to you forever. You never hit me up. You never hit me up.
Right.
What? That's not how it goes. Yeah. It's a 2-lane street.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like that also kind of to go backwards. It's so translucent. Is that the word? Translucent in music, because a lot of people who can't vocalize, or who can't necessarily understand their own emotions, get those feelings of release from music. A lot of people can't understand why they're angry, but they get a song out that lets them exhibit to get that emotion out as well. Right.
Yeah, and some people that aren't even allowed, to speak on certain things through music, it's allowable. When you talk about, and just as an example, when you talk about Black community not having other platforms, whether it be voting, whether it be, equal rights in any sense, right? But you open up music, for as an arena for Black community to be able to express themselves. It's more acceptable. Music is like an even playing ground, whereas you've got some other institutions that are grossly, unequal. And so music, to me, and not getting into like the business and the behind the scenes, because I know that it
more
still
so
exists.
Just the art,
but
and the love for it.
The being the artist, being able to express yourself, being able to make music from, whether it be beautiful equipment to trash cans, you know what I mean, and branches. Like, it's an even playing field. Anybody could express themselves through that medium.
No, yeah, I completely, I 1,000% agree with that. And kind of, you mentioned it, the business side of it. That's what one of the things that my mom and I want to do as far as with the radio station, is getting a platform that makes the artists feel they don't have to compete as much with the Drakes or the 2 Chainz. You can still get your music heard on the radio. Let us be your platform. It can be daunting. When you send your song out to like a radio station, but it's like, it's not competing with this big Sean track. It's like, I just want people to hear it. Because SoundCloud can only do so much. Although it's like a platform. There are so many other platforms that people can be exposed to. And get their content out there.
That's awesome, and I'm glad that you brought up what you and your mom are working on between the nonprofit, the studio, the radio station. I mean, again, these are all things to be able to create a platform for people to have their expressions, amplified, and being able to increase the reach. And I love it. That's right where UNNI is at. What we're trying to do. And so I appreciate you so much for spending time with me today. From survivor to survivor. You know what I mean? Like, it's so important that we share the ways that we are surviving, because at times it can get really confusing, you know what I mean? And at times I lack motivation, you know what I mean? Like, I wake up and I'm like, damn that job, and like everything. But when I hear other stories and see how other people are, we have shared lived experiences, and they're getting up and they're still grinding and they're still doing positive things in the community, it makes me feel like, all right, I need to follow suit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is where I belong, So for anybody that's out there that's not feeling like they have a sense of belonging, that's not feeling like they're not understood, that's feeling like they can't express themselves, they can't communicate for whatever reasons, UNNI Podcast is the place to be.
Yes.
In a conversation with DJ Prenup is the place and the person to talk to. Will you please let them know how would they get a hold of you if they wanted to continue this conversation?
Yes. So all my social media tags are at DJ Prenup, whether it's Twitter or Instagram. That's DJ PRENUP, literally short for prenuptial. And I do have a little calling that I have it actually tattooed on my arm. And it's always live, love, music.
Love it.
I love life, I love love, and I love music.
Yeah.
So to me, those things are my trifecta. That's my holy trinity right there.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right. Well, if we're going to start talking about tattoos, No, I so appreciate you. Please reach out to DJ Prenup to continue this conversation. You are the coolest dude that I've ever met. The most interesting man on earth.
Oh, my gosh. Just one last thing. For anyone that is tuned in and listening, if you feel like you don't have an ear to go to, you have an ear. Feel free to hit me up whenever. I don't mind talking to strangers. Even recently, there was this Twitter group that was like randomly made, and I just posted it. It was like, I'm all for this. I don't know y'all, but y'all are cool,
right?
And just those different modes of confidence. I love being an ear. Mm-hmm. So you have someone to talk to at DJ Prenup. You don't gotta follow me. My page is open.
Yeah, just
hit me with the DM.
Nice. Yeah, and not only you being an ear, but you being a creator for a platform for people to be heard. Mm-hmm. That's so important, because I know from experience, I get so frustrated when, you finally do find the courage to speak up and to protest and things like that, and then there's no change. That's no good. So I love that you are not only just the ear. That's not just the cliche, that people say to everybody, but you are walking the walk as well,
yes.
And you have the platform to be able to amplify these voices. So please make sure you reach out to this man. Please make sure you continue listening to the UNNI podcast. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you guys.
All right, then. Thank you all so much for your time today. I'm your host, Bianca McCall. Remember, connect, create, be constructive. Help me and the many others doing amazing things in the space of suicide prevention, and reach in to give permission to those in crisis to reach out. Please, I welcome for you to share your thoughts, your feelings, your efforts, or the efforts of others in your communities with me. Please, you can find me on YouTube, on IG, on Facebook, under my agency's name, Desert Rose Counseling Group, or you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Bianca McCall. We also have a website where we'll be posting our podcasts and updates on information. And until next time, stay safe, be well, be heroes.